does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor dwell among the sun and moon and stars. He has a divine purpose you need to understand. Come learn of it and learn just who you are. Oh, won't you come and learn if he exists, just who he is. Just make that step to learn his name, or you're gonna be to blame if you don't search for him while he is near. While he can be found, if you really feared, you would search for him. He's everywhere. Yahweh can be found while there's still time to search for him. Search for him. He's everywhere, everywhere. Yahweh can be found. If you really feared, you would search for him. He's everywhere. Yahweh can be found while there's still time to care. Won't you search for him while he is near, while he can be found? If you really feared, you would search for him. He's everywhere. Yahweh can be found while there's still time to care. He's not some heavy idol you need to lift and bear, more of a burden than a freedom. Some little God to worship when you've got the time to spare, and teardrops are your only reason for even wondering if he exists, just who he is. Won't take that step to learn his name. You're gonna be to blame if you don't search for him while he is near, while he can be found. be found while there's still time to care. Won't you search for him while he is near, while he can be found? If you really feared, you would search for him. He's everywhere. Yahweh can be found while there's still time to care. He's not some heavy idol you need to lift and bear, more of a burden than a freedom. Some little God to worship when you've got the time to spare, and teardrops are your only reason for even wondering if he exists, just who he is. Won't take that step.
In this school, we teach in the true, correct, and original name and title. Lord and God are titles, and they are not names. The Apostle Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, tells us in 1 Corinthians 8:5 that there are Lords many and Gods many. But we now know that each Lord must have a name and each God must have a name. Elohim is a title, but unlike Lord and God, Elohim is a divine title. That means it's the title that our Creator chose for himself. Jesus is a name, but this is an erroneous name. A minor investigation on your part in a good dictionary or encyclopedia would prove that neither the Hebrew language, the Greek language, nor the Latin language have any letters or characters in their alphabet that would produce the sound made by this letter J. Neither was there a letter J in the English language until some 1,400 years after the Messiah's death, making such names as Jesus and Jehovah impossible renderings for the true, correct, and original name and title of our Heavenly Father and His Son. Christ is the title just like Lord and God. Yahweh is pure spirit, and in this state, He's incomprehensible and inscrutable. Yahweh is the ultimate source, substance, limits, and bounds to everything. We have Yahweh in His pure spirit state, symbolized on this chart as a cloud. Yahweh is not a cloud. He merely chose a cloud to symbolize himself because a cloud has no particular or descriptive shape and form. We have drawn this cloud all around the edges of this chart to show you that everything on the chart is within the cloud. In like manner, everything in the universe abides within the pure spirit state of Yahweh. Yahweh, knowing that man could not perceive of him in his pure spirit state, took on shape and took on form right within himself as Elohim. This is the Word or Son, a super incorporeal being that is having the shape and form of a man but without flesh and blood. This form can only be seen in divine visions and understood in divine revelations. Later on, the self-same Spirit manifested himself in a physical body and walked the earth plane as Yahshua the Messiah, whom the world calls Jesus Christ. Now, there's only one name given unto salvation, and we must know that name. So the simple yet intelligent question we should ask ourselves is, what was the name of the Savior during the time that he walked the earth plane? A further understanding of the name and title may be had by reading the preface of a Holy Name Bible. Also in this school, we teach by the divine pattern of the universe. It is called the divine pattern because it is Yahweh's pattern. After Yahweh led the children of Israel out of Egypt, he called Moses atop Mount Sinai and showed him the tabernacle pattern in a vision. Yahweh instructed Moses to build one exactly like it in the wilderness of Sinai. The pattern consists of a most holy place, a holy place, and a court round about. These three compartments make up the one tabernacle pattern. In this school, we show proof how everything in the universe is made and operates according to the structure and the function of this threefold tabernacle pattern, and that absolutely nothing escapes the pattern. Our primary constitutional aims and objectives are as follows. First, to help you to find and know Yahweh, our Elohim, as he really is and actually exists. Second, to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood of humanity in Yahshua the Messiah without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, nationality, or color. Third, to investigate the unexplained spirit law, or so-called law of nature, and the powers latent in man. Fourth, to encourage and promote the study of the scriptures, comparative religion, psychology, philosophy, and modern practical and occult science. Fifth, to extirpate current superstition, skepticism, and ignorance. Sixth, to learn, know, and understand the operation of Yahweh's eternal purpose through the dispensations and ages. Seventh, to discern and avoid being deceived by Lucifer, the serpent, the devil, the dragon, or Satan and his demons operating the mystery of iniquity on earth through the dispensations of time. Eighth, to earnestly contend for the common salvation and faith which was once delivered to the sons or children of Yahweh. Ninth, to make known that Yahweh from the beginning ordained there is no other name given among men whereby man can be saved, saving the name of Yahshua the Messiah. And 10th, to inherit eternal life now in the kingdom of Yahshua the Messiah with the hope of mortal glorification in the new earth state. Our watchword is peace. Our slogan is speak the truth. At this time, we will have a prayer by Dr. Janice Welsh. Our scripture this morning will be Acts, the 4th chapter, to be read by Dr. Brandon Craig. And our readers will be Dr. Danielle Anwar and Dr. Susan Craig. And we will probably have selections from the choir.
Good morning, class. Good morning. Let's bow our hearts and minds and thank Yahshua for allowing us to be here this morning. And we ask that you open our hearts and our minds and give us an understanding. And we appreciate all the knowledge that you've bestowed on us throughout our time here on this earth. So let us all say hallelujah.
Good morning. I will be reading Acts, the 4th chapter from the Holy Name Bible, containing the Holy Name version of the Old and New Testaments, critically compared with ancient authorities and various manuscripts revised by A.B. Traina and reprinted by Yahshua Promotions. Acts, the 4th chapter. And as they spake unto the people, the priests and the captain of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Yahshua the resurrection from the dead. And they laid hands on him and put them in prison until the next day, for it was now eventide. Howbeit many of them which heard the word believed, and the number of the men was about 5,000. And it came to pass on the morrow, that their rulers and elders and scribes, and Annas the high priest, and Caiaphas, and John, and Alexander, and as many as were of the kindred of the high priest, were gathered together at Jerusalem. And when they had set them in the midst, they asked, By what power, or by what name have ye done this? Then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said unto them, Ye rulers of the people, and elders of Israel, if we this day be examined of the good deed done to the impotent man, by what means he is made whole, be it known unto you all and to all the people of Israel, that by the name of Yahshua the Messiah of Nazareth, whom ye crucified, whom Yahweh raised from the dead, even by him doth this man stand here before you whole. This is the stone which is set at naught of you builders, which is become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled, and they took knowledge of them, that they had been with Yahshua. And beholding the man which was healed standing with them, they could say nothing against it. But when they had commanded them to go aside out of the council, they conferred among themselves, saying, What shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them is manifest to all them that dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it. But that it spread no further among the people, let us straitly threaten them, that they speak henceforth to no man in this name. And they called them, and commanded them not to speak at all or teach in the name of Yahshua. But Peter and John answered and said unto them, Whether it be right in the sight of Elohim to hearken unto you more than unto Yahweh, judge ye. For we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. So when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them because of the people, for all glorified Yahweh for that which was done. For the man was above 40 years old, on whom this miracle of healing was wrought. And being let go, they went to their own company, and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said unto them. And when they heard that, they lifted up their voice to Yahweh with one accord, and said, Yahweh, thou art Eloah, which hast made heaven and earth, and the sea, and all that in them is, who by the mouth of thy servant David hast said, Why did the heathen rage, and the people imagine vain things? The kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers were gathered together against Yahweh and against his Messiah. For of a truth against thy holy Son Yahshua, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate and the brethren and the heathen, and the people of Israel were joined together, for to do whatsoever thy hand and thy counsel determined before to be done. And now, Yahweh, behold their threatenings, and grant unto thy servants that with all boldness that they may speak thy word, by stretching forth thine hand to heal, and that signs and wonders may be done by the name of thy holy Son, Yahshua. And when they had prayed, the place was shaken where they were assembled together. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and they spake the word of Yahweh with boldness. And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things common. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of Yahshua the Messiah, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet.
Their voices on that music too. So I just have to mouth it.
We need some wisdom. We need the truth. We need some beauty. We need the proof. And in the meantime, I know that he's inside. Now I know Joshua, and I'm satisfied. Now listen, went to the ocean, stood in the surf. I heard the water, I felt the earth. I heard the angels, y'all couldn't be denied. Now I know Joshua, and I'm satisfied. Ooh, we learned to believe him. He's the only righteous man. I try to do the best I can. He is the teacher. The truth is in the Son. We can leave it all behind. This carnalness. We got Joshua's wisdom. Joshua is the truth. He's got plenty of beauty. It's all kinds of proof. Oh, that means right now. That means right now. The Holy Spirit is inside. Now I know Joshua, and I'm satisfied. All right, let's sing. Yahweh is the reason.
Oh, he's the reason
That we were born.
that I was born.
Joshua's the answer.
Oh, he's the answer.
We all been looking for.
Yeah, I was looking.
All the others, they stood around and lied.
Oh, they lied, they lied, they lied.
Oh, now we know Joshua. That's his son, satisfied. Sing it, choir. We got Joshua's wisdom. Joshua is the truth. He's got plenty of beauty. He gives all kinds of proof now. Oh, that means right now. That means right now. The Holy Spirit tabernacles inside. Now we know Joshua. That makes us satisfied. Thank you, Joshua. You made us satisfied. Ooh, yeah.
Good morning. Our first speaker for this morning's class session will be Dr. Tim McNamara.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. We've been going over the Elohim book, and on page 13 there is a particular chart that I kind of like. And we haven't really covered it, and I've kind of felt that we should. I think it's pretty important. And actually all those charts right there in that particular section are kind of cool. And the way that Dr. Kinley has broken them down into segments, because they're all basically showing this here, the children of Israel being down in the land of Canaan and Moses being called up into the mount, and so on and so forth. And so Dr. Kinley has broken those all down into segments, if I could put it that way. What I would like is for you to grab... What do I want? Genesis, the 15th chapter, the 13th verse. Because there was a promise given to Abraham back here that in his seed all the families of the earth would be blessed. But there was also another promise made to Abraham. And that's here in the 15th chapter. Most people probably don't look at it as a promise, but it's a guarantee, okay, of what was going to happen. So that's why I say he made another promise to Abraham here. Okay, so if you can grab that.
Genesis 15 and
13.
13.
Yeah.
And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs.
Okay, so he said, know of a surety. In other words, this is going to happen, Abraham. I don't care what you think or what you want. This is what's going to happen. Your seed is going to go down into a land that they know not of. Okay, continue.
Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
Okay. Now, Abraham is up here in Canaan's land at this time. Okay, and he's wandering through the whole land of Canaan land. He's going around all the borders of it, checking it out. And he's told that his seed is going to come down here into the land of Egypt. Of course, now Yahweh isn't specific about what that land is, but still it's a land that, well, Abraham was slightly familiar with it because there was a famine in the time of Abraham when he was up here in Canaan's land, and he went down into Egypt. And he was down there for a short time before he got kicked out because he had basically lied to the Pharaoh there at the time, saying that Sarah, who Pharaoh found quite beautiful, and he was attracted to her, right? And of course, he didn't really lie because she was his wife, but she was also his sister, right? But at this time, we don't really know that she's his sister. And Yahweh plagues Pharaoh for taking Sarah, or Sarai at this time, because her name isn't Sarah then, it's Sarai. And so he plagues Pharaoh, sends some plagues upon her because of Sarai. And obviously there must have been a dream or some sort of happening because Pharaoh found out that Sarai was Abraham's wife. Right? And said, why did you do this thing to me? Why have you caused me to sin? Basically. Right? And so he gave Sarai back and then said, you need to leave. Okay? And so that was his trip down into the land of Egypt. So Abraham had been there. But of course his seed, you could say in a sense his seed had been down there, but they didn't know that land. Okay, so continue there.
And also that nation whom
Continue.
And thou shalt go in thy father, and thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age.
Right.
But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full.
Okay, so in the fourth generation, Yahweh is going to bring them out, or in 400 years, because that's what he told them, was that in 400 years, you know, he was going to send his seed down there for 400 years, that they were going to be in bondage to the children of, or in the land of Egypt. The children of Israel would be in bondage in the land of Egypt. So, he's up here. Now, how did the children of Israel get down here? Well, we don't have a picture, but Joseph, who was the 11th son of Israel, or Jacob, was despised by his brethren. They didn't like him because he was daddy's favorite. You know, he had dreams that he was able to interpret. He had actually interpreted 2 dreams, telling his brothers that someday he was going to rule over them. You know, they would bow down to him. And then he had later admitted that the sun, the moon, and the stars would also bow down to him. And these 2 dreams are like the law and the prophets, which Yahshua, of course, it's all pointing to Yahshua, right? And Yahshua had to fulfill the law and the prophets. That's what he came to do, fulfill the law, prophets, and the Psalms, everything concerning him. So these 2 dreams, they have to be fulfilled by Joseph, which they are when his brethren at the time of the famine, because that's what happens. Let me back up again. Joseph is sold into bondage by his brethren, okay? Again, because they didn't like him, they despised him, they hated him, they were jealous of him, envious of him. And so they plotted against him when they saw him coming, and they basically sold him into bondage, and he was taken down into Egypt. And then while down in Egypt, of course, he was sold to the house of Potiphar, where he rose up and was second in command in Potiphar's house. But he had a little problem there, in that Potiphar's wife saw him very attractive and wanted to sleep with him, you know. But Joseph wouldn't have anything to do with that. Okay, he had been given charge over all of Potiphar's house, you know, but he wasn't going to sin against Potiphar or against himself by sleeping with another man's wife. And so she turned on him and had him imprisoned, where he was in prison for a few years, 3 years to be exact, because it was early in the 3rd year that he was brought out of prison. And that was when Pharaoh had received his dreams. Now, Joseph had interpreted a couple dreams while he was in jail, or in prison, being the baker and the butcher, right? And did I get that right? Baker? No, I always say butcher.
Right.
Yes, the butler, the manservant. I say butcher, I don't know why. So they too had dreams while they were in prison, both of them on the same night, and Joseph interpreted those dreams for them, showing that one was a dream unto resurrection, and one would be a dream unto death or destruction. Okay? And it was the butler that was resurrected up back into his former state as the manservant to Pharaoh. And of course, when he left, Joseph says, hey, remember me. But he forgot him. And then Pharaoh had his 2 dreams, 2 dreams, where he saw the 7 cattle and the 7 ears of corn being healthy and good. And then, of course, the blasted corn and the blasted, or what was it?
Blighted. The
bad cows, I'll put it that way. The skinny cows, yeah, the kine, I think, is what they're called there in the book. But Pharaoh didn't understand those dreams. Joseph, this is when the manservant remembered Joseph and said, hey, when I was in prison, when you threw me in, I had a couple dreams. The baker had a dream, and this man interpreted our dreams, and both those interpretations came to be true. In fact, that I was raised back to my former state, whereas the baker, he was put to death. Okay, and so Pharaoh called Joseph out of prison, and this would be in the 3rd year, at the beginning of the 3rd year of his imprisonment. And this would be likened unto the 2,300 days of Yahshua the Messiah, because we know that Yahshua was, we got 1 day where 1,000 years with the death, 1,000 years with the burial, and then he resurrected early on the third day. And of course, he had changed his garments and was cleaned up, because when he was put in this sepulcher, he was a beaten body. They couldn't recognize him at all. He was not recognizable as a man. You know, he was like a side of beef, you could say. And so he was, you know, but when he resurrected a clean body, right? Change of clothes, right? They didn't even recognize him when they first saw him. Okay, being the apostles, and even Mary. Mary didn't recognize him. She thought he was a gardener. So Joseph, at the beginning of his third year in prison, is brought out. He's given a change of clothes. He's washed up. He's shaven. And he's presented before Pharaoh, where he interprets Pharaoh's 2 dreams to be what they are. 7 years of plenty, where they would have exceeding bountiful crops. And then followed by 7 years of famine, in which there wasn't going to be much of anything growing. And so because Joseph was able to interpret these dreams, he was again raised up, where he was put on the right hand of the Father, being likened unto Yahshua the Messiah, sitting on the right hand of Yahweh. Okay, and of course his name was changed. I couldn't tell you what it was, but it means Savior of the world, which is what Yahshua is, the Savior of the world. Okay, so now Joseph, he is able to bring his brethren from from Canaan's land down into Egypt, where he's at. Okay, and I think if you go to the first chapter, now this is where I would like my book. I probably want that stand too. So Joseph sends for his brothers, his father, and everything, and brings him back down in the land of Egypt. Do we have a stand? We do. Just for most of you, whoever doesn't have a book. That's probably not going to stay either. Anyways. All right. So here we have this chart. Now, when we look at this chart, we see, like all the charts, threefold in its nature. We have the land of Egypt down here. Okay, the wilderness of Sinai being the holy place, court roundabout, land of Egypt, holy place, wilderness of Sinai, most holy. might rise up someday if somebody invaded them and joined that other land, joined that other army against them, decided to put the men children to death. Okay? And so there was a decree here that all children were 2 years and under? Male children? Okay, continued for 2 years. Got it. So basically, any newborn male child was supposed to be executed. Okay? And he had charged the two midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, right, to do this job. But of course, they disobeyed him. Because, like we had read earlier today, who is it better to obey? Man or Yahweh, right? As was read in Acts. These two women obeyed Yahweh, or at this time as they knew him as El Shaddai, because the name hadn't been given to them yet. So at this point in time, right, they only know him as El Shaddai, right? Because Moses hadn't gone up. Moses is just a baby here, right? He's just now being born, right? And his mother, under this death decree, she keeps him for 3 months because she knows he's a goodly child. But when she can no longer hide him, she builds an ark of bulrush, or builds an ark for him, slob, puts slime and pitch on it, makes it waterproof, and sets the young boy in the river Nile, in the flags, okay, the weeds, whatever you want to call it. Of Pharaoh for 40 years, thereabouts. Now, when we go to the second chapter of Exodus, because all this side here is basically dealing with the first chapter of Exodus and maybe the last chapter also of Genesis, because that's where Joseph says, brings his brother down. He says, I'm going to die. Don't leave me down here. Be sure to take my bones out of this place. Take me with you. So over here, we're talking the last part of Genesis and the first chapter of Genesis. Now over here on this side, we've got this little wall here, and we see Moses slew the Egyptian, okay? And that's what happens in the second chapter of Exodus. Moses goes out to to look upon his brethren, right? And he sees an Egyptian smiting one of his Hebrew brethren, which turns out to be his brother Aaron, okay? But Moses intercedes, and he kills the Egyptian. And he buries him in the sand. He looks around to make sure nobody saw what was happening, and he buried the guy in the sand and thought he was good to go. Right? Thought he was good to go. Well, the next day, he goes back out to the Hebrews, and he sees two Hebrews fighting with each other. And of course, one has the upper hand on the other one, and he says, "Wherefore thou art thou smiting your brethren?" And he says, "Well, who made you prince and judge over me? You're going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian yesterday and bury me in the sand too?" And Moses is like, "Uh-oh, my, this is known. I have to go." And so Moses flees out of the land of Egypt, and we see right here, we see flight. Okay, coming along this word right here, showing that Moses is leaving the land of Egypt. And he's going to come out here into the land, into the wilderness of Sinai, where, third chapter of Exodus. I'm going to have you go there. But still down here in the second chapter of Exodus, Moses comes to a well in the land of Midian, right? And he sees the 7 women there that approach to water their sheep. And at the same time, also, the other shepherds are coming. Now, this was briefly gone over Wednesday by Dr. Welsh, how that well was covered with a rock and that it had to be removed. But the basic gist of the story is that these women, even though they were there first, they were kicked to the curb, if I can put it that way, because the other shepherds, being male, right, figure they have superiority probably over the women. You're second-class citizens. We're first-class citizens, kind of that attitude, I'm assuming. Anyways, yeah, it is. Right, I know. Look at the Academy Awards, right? Moses intercedes for the women. And now Moses, he's a warrior. He grew up as a soldier, right? He's dealing with shepherds who do not know how to fight. Okay, and I'm not going to go into all the because I can't. There are no details, but Moses, having superior fighting skills and whatnot, probably was able to persuade these gentlemen to step aside and let the women water their sheep first, ladies first, right? That's the way I was taught, ladies first. Growing up, that's how it was, ladies first. So we know then that the 7 women head back to home, and Jethro Ruel says, what's up? How come you're here so early? And obviously they're like, hey, we got this Egyptian dude who helped us out back there at the well, and we were able to water our sheep before the other guys were able to water theirs. And that's why we're home early. And he says, well, go get the man and bring him back. And we'll feed him and have supper with him. And of course, Moses, he stays. He's invited to stay or stays, whatever, it doesn't matter. He is invited to stay, and he ends up marrying Jethro's first daughter, Zipporah. Now, 40 years later, we come to the holy place here, where Moses is at the backside of the mount, and he's tending to the sheep. And he sees this burning bush. So let's go ahead and start there at Genesis 3:1.
Exodus 3:1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of Elohim.
Right, and we have that shown right here, Mount Sinai. This would be the Mount of Elohim. Continue.
Even to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush.
Yep.
And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed.
Okay, and so we have that depicted right here, and it's shown right here too on this chart where we have the Ayah, Asher, Ayah, and we can see the flame, and Moses standing here next to the bush, and of course his shoes are removed. But here, this is where Moses is at, and he sees this burning bush. This is a pretty cool picture. And he sees the angel of Yahweh in the burning bush, and he's wondering why this bush isn't consumed. So go ahead and continue reading, please.
And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight.
wondered about on this chart, the second one, where we have the children of Israel. Go to the 19th chapter of Exodus. Can't remember which verse it is. 15, 13, no. Anyways, it's going to be down in there where Yahweh tells Moses basically to put a barrier around the mountain. Okay? You're going to stop the children. They're only going to be able to get so close.
Because you know.
Do you know where it's at?
Yeah.
You got it?
Exodus 19 and 23. And Moses said unto Yahweh, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai. Sinai, for thou chargest us, saying, set bounds about the mount and sanctify it.
Right.
And Yahweh said unto him, away, get thee down.
Okay.
And thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron, with thee. But let not the priest and the people break through to come up unto Yahweh, lest he break forth unto them.
Okay, so there you can see that they're not really right at the mountain here on this chart. There's a little bit of distance between them and the mountain. Okay, just as he told back here, he said, stop, don't come any closer than what you are. You are close enough. Now, why? Joshua has to fulfill this. So go to Luke 22 and 41. Now, where we're going to here is Joshua. This would be the night of the Passover, right? And he had just celebrated the Passover dinner with his disciples in the upper room, and they had left the upper room. And now they're approaching the Garden of Gethsemane, where they have to cross the brook Kidron. Okay? And Joshua tells them, no, you can't come in here. You stop right here while I go into the garden. Why? Because back here, Adam was kicked out of the garden. Okay? Adam had sinned and he was kicked out of the garden. And there was flaming swords put up to guard the way back into the mountains, or back into the garden, so that nobody could get back in. So heaven at this time is closed. Okay, and this is what Joshua is doing. This is he is entering into heaven, so to speak, spiritually, if you want to put it that way. Symbolically, that's the word I'm looking for. Symbolically, he's crossing over this river Jordan, which is represented by the brook Kidron, and he's entering into the garden. The garden, okay? Canaan's land was like a garden, right? The grapes were so big it took 2 guys to carry them, right? So much food over there was no way that they, just huge, right? It was garden-esque, right? So, this is a garden. This is a garden. They're not allowed in the land of Canaan yet. They've been kicked out or sent down, just, you know. And anyways, where was I? Luke 22:41.
And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me.
Okay.
Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done.
All right. So, when he entered the garden and he told his disciples to hang back, they were about a stone's throw away. This was about a stone's throw away. That's how far he was from the burning bush. That's how far the children of Israel were away from the base of the mount, about a stone's throw away, all being fulfilled by Yahshua the Messiah. So back here now, we go to Asher, where Yahweh appears in the flaming bush, in the burning bush, to Moses, and he tells Moses that he's going to send Moses back down into the land of Egypt to bring his children out, to bring his son out, okay? And he says, you know, because I've seen it, and he says, I know their sorrow. Now, the only way you can really know something is to experience it. If you've never been punched in the nose, you don't know what it feels like to be punched in the nose. Right? You can only assume what it might feel like, but you don't know unless you've experienced it. Is there something you need to see? So he and we know that he is down here in the land of Egypt as Joshua, as they put in the book, but really his name is Joshua, or Dr. Kinley says Yehoshua. This was Yehoshua down here in the land of Egypt. And so he's down there for 30 years. He appeared in the 400th year, and he was there for another 30 years, and that's when the children of Israel are finally brought out of the land of Egypt. But that's another story. So Yahweh gives him his name, gives him his title too, Elohim, which had not been known at that time either. Again, El Shaddai was all that they knew. What is it? Exodus 6 and 4, 4 and 6, 4 and 3, 6 and 3. They knew 6 and 3. Yeah, let's get that real quick.
Exodus 6 and 3. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by my name of El Shaddai.
Right.
But by my name Yahweh was I not known to them.
Right. I think in the King James Version it says Jehovah. Right? Which, thinking about that, that's a J-E-H, right? And then I know you've got some other scriptures in there that say praise Jah, J-A-H. Why the difference? Just throwing that out there. Anyways, he's given the name. This would be in the 3rd chapter of Exodus. And then, of course, it goes further down into the 4th chapter of Exodus. Because Moses doesn't want to go back down into the land of Egypt because he killed somebody. Right? And as far as he knows, he's still a wanted man. Right? The statute of limitations doesn't run out on murder. Okay? But, as Yahweh tells Moses, those people that knew you back then, they're not around anymore. He's taking care of them. And so you don't have to worry about that, Moses. And then, of course, Moses goes, but I can't. I stutter. I don't talk. And so he's like, well, your brother Aaron, he can talk, and he's on his way, right? He's going to meet you. And so Moses rendezvous with Aaron, and this is where the 3rd part, see, because this bottom part of this court roundabout is broken up into 3 sections. Where over here on this side we have the pre-Moses and current Moses era. I'll put it that way. And then over here on this side of the chart in the court roundabout, we have Moses fleeing. But now Moses, he's not going to make it up into Canaan's land, okay? He's coming up here into the wilderness, and he's sent back down. And if you look in the center part of the court roundabout, you're going to see that it says the house of Pharaoh. And it's hard to see, but there is this gentleman, this person sitting on a throne, and there are 4 people standing before him. And then there's this little line with an arrow pointing to a rod, which would be the rod of Moses. And this was the rod that Moses had up here in the wilderness, where in chapter 4, Exodus the 4th chapter, he's given 3 signs, Moses is. His first sign is to take the rod that he's holding, and he throws it down on the ground, and it turns into a serpent. And what does Moses do? He runs from that serpent. Why? Because it's deadly. Why? Because he's got no protection. Without a weapon in his hand, Moses is no match for that serpent. Okay? And that's pointing to us being no match for Lucifer without a weapon. And that weapon is Yahshua the Messiah. Okay? So without Yahshua the Messiah, we got no chance. Right? So Moses flees from this serpent, and of course Yahweh says, grab it, pick it up by the tail, and when he does, it turns into a rod again. Now what Moses is symbolically doing is picking it up by the lie. Okay? You're picking it up by a tail, and a tale we know is a story. And most stories are embellished greatly, and they're not really truthful. People love to do that. It's just our bad nature, right? To make the story sound better than what it is, right? And that's all about building yourself up, People do that. That's how one way to build up your own ego. So he's given the sign of the rod, throwing it down and it becoming a serpent. He's also given the sign where he's to put his hand inside his bosom, and when he does, he pulls it out, and it's leprous. Now he can't run away from this, right? There's nowhere he can go. Anywhere he runs, it's going with him, right? And I know I'd be freaking out, right? And he might have been too. But Yahweh says, put your hand back in the bosom and pull it back out, and his flesh was made whole again. And all this is showing that Yahweh, being Ayah, Asher, Ayah, I will be what I will to be, has the power to be what he will to be. He can be death, he can be life, right? And he's demonstrating this to Moses. And he says also, if you need a third sign, Moses, turn the water to blood when you get down in there, okay? Because he doesn't do that out here in the wilderness. He's just told, here's a third sign for you. Okay, if they don't believe the first two, do the third one. Right? So Moses sent back down in the land of Egypt with this rod and with these signs that he's supposed to perform before the children of Israel, before the elders, because that's who he's to go to first, is the elders, and show them the signs, and then to Pharaoh. So now we have Moses here before Pharaoh. And of course over here we have Moses being 80 years old at that time, okay? Because he was in the world, he was 40 years old when he left Egypt. He was another 40 years or 80 years old when Yahweh sent him back down. And when he came down, this would be in chapter 7 of Exodus. If you would grab this, I forget which verse, maybe 17. But don't hold me to that. I don't recall. I know it's in chapter 7 of Exodus where Moses goes before Pharaoh. And what he does is he throws down his rod before Pharaoh, and it turns into a serpent. And these two guys here, Janice and Jambres, they throw down their rods also. You can see that depicted here. They got the two rods and the arrow, showing that their two rods also turned into serpents or snakes. And Moses' rod swallowed up their rod, okay? Showing the power of Yahweh. That's what he's doing, showing that power.
7 and 10?
Yeah, read that, please.
Exodus 7 and 10. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh,
right,
and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did like manner with their enchantments, for they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods, and he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as Yahweh had said.
Right. So now Moses, or Yahweh, I'm sorry, not Moses, but Yahweh is going to pour out 10 plagues. Okay? He's going to pour out 10 plagues on the land of Egypt. Of course, the first 3 are going to embody everybody. The Israelites and the Egyptians are both going to be faced with the first 3 plagues that are poured out. The next 7 will be just on the Egyptians only. But the first plague here, and again we see the river Nile, because that's an important part. And also, before we go any further, Exodus 36, 1 and 2. Somebody got a calculator? Beauty. You're going to need it. we see this pyramid here with 2520, in which, there it is right here. Also, 2520. Now, this 2520, this is actually 2,513 years from Adam that Moses, is given the vision. Right? Is that right? Yeah, given the vision. And he sees the 7 days of creation, which the 7 days added on to the 2513, bringing it to 2520. Okay? Now, this 2520 is actually covered in Exodus 36, 1 and 2. Read it, please.
Exodus 36 and 1. Then wrought Bezalel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man in whom Yahweh put his wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all that Yahweh had commanded.
Right.
And Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab, and after...
Did I say 36?
You said 36.
I meant 26. I'm sorry for misspeaking.
26 and 1. Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle
There we go.
with 10 curtains of fine twined linen,
So we're going to need 10. We got 10 curtains of fine twined linen. Continue.
and blue and purple and scarlet.
Uh-huh.
With cherubims of skillful work shalt thou make them. The length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits.
Okay, so that's going to be 28 cubits, which comes out to 42 feet. So multiply 10 times 42.
What did you say, 10 times 42?
10 times 42,
4,200.
420.
What?
10 times 42 is 420.
Oh, okay.
Okay, keep reading.
The length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the breadth of 1 cubit 4 cubits, and
Okay.
every one of the curtains shall have one measure.
Okay, so there's going to be 10 cubits, or 10 curtains. They're 28 cubits wide, or long, I'm sorry, which equals 42 feet. And they're 4 feet wide, which comes out to 6 feet. So if you multiply 6 times 42 times 10, you're going to come up with 2520. Okay? Just showing. That's there. Okay, Yahweh has got this number covered through the blue, purple, and scarlet veil. Now, exactly what that symbolizes, I can't express that. To me, it says that Yahweh had everything covered. Okay? He was working, I don't know how to state it. But at this point here, now Yahweh is going to give down a law. Okay? He's going to bring down a law. So prior to this, the world had not been under any kind of law. They were under their own law. We got it right here. The age of conscience. Okay? We have the human government, or the Tower of Babel. So people are, again, they're not working by anything divine. Okay? They're operating for these 2,520 years under their own conscience, right? But now Yahweh is going to give a law, right? And that law is to show just how wicked we were, right? So exactly if that's what that means, I don't know. I'm not trying to say that's doctrine, okay? So don't take it that way. That's just what Yahweh has shown me. Whether there's more to come, I don't know. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out. So so we got that 2520 over here, right? And of course the children of Israel, not only did they help build the Pithom and Ramses, they helped build these pyramids too, and the Sphinx. This was all part of it. They, built this all. And so you can see, and again, I'm going to get back to this. Moses here and Aaron. There's 4 people here. I'm going to assume one of them might be Joshua. I don't know who these 4 people represent other than 2 of them are Aaron and Moses. 2 guards? Okay. I'll go with that. But either way, they're appearing before Pharaoh. And as we just read, he came in before Pharaoh and he threw down his rod and it turned into a serpent. And Janice and Jambres threw down their rod, and that turned into a serpent, and Moses' rod consumed theirs. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And Yahweh says now the next day, continue reading there, because now he's going to send Moses to the river Nile where Pharaoh is going to go to bathe himself or clean up. Exodus 7th chapter.
Do you want 7 and 1?
No.
Okay.
We were down there at 14 or 15.
Okay, you want to continue. Okay.
Yes.
7 and 14. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened.
Yep.
He refuses to let the people go.
And Yahweh said he was going to harden his heart, right? And he just did it, right? Continue.
Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning.
Right.
Lo, he goeth out unto the water.
Mm-hmm.
And thou shalt stand by the river's brink against he come.
Right.
And the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thine hand.
Right. And this rod that turned into a serpent, he's going to put it in his hand. Continue.
And thou shalt say unto him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has sent me unto thee,
Right.
saying, Let my people go,
Right.
that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear.
Right.
Thus saith Yahweh, in this thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand
Right.
upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood.
Right. And so that's the first plague. And even though this picture is in black and white, I kind of somewhat think that maybe this river Nile would be colored red, showing that Moses, this is what he came down to do, is to pour out these 10 plagues upon the land of Egypt, because Yahweh already knew that's what it was going to take, because he had planned it that way, plain and simple. It was foreordained. He knew this is what I'm going to do. Right? You may not know it, but I know it. And so this first plague, this is what is being depicted down here. And I just, this chart is really pretty cool in the fact that, there's a threefoldness down here in the court roundabout, along with the typical threefoldness of each and every chart being a most holy place, and court roundabout. Just as we have 3 vessels down here in the court roundabout, there are 3 Moses makes, can I say, 3 encounters or 3 happenings or whatever word you want to use. But he's here before, this is him leaving, and then him returning. Okay, so you can see that that's threefold in its nature. And so I just wanted to point that out, and of course we know the 10 plagues are poured out, and then we come over here, we got gotta stay away from that. Down here in the bottom corner is showing the Passover, which we have right here, which is probably at least to me, one of the single most important happenings that we need to understand this Passover and what it all meant. So with that, I just wanted to, and of course, I had also shown this too, because he says that he appeared to Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac as El Shaddai. But it also says here in this one particular paragraph that he had made a covenant with them. All right, and so if you go to 26:3 and 4 of Genesis, you don't have to get it. I'm just telling you. That's where you'll see he made the covenant with Isaac. Okay, because that's not mentioned in that writing. It's just mentioned El Shaddai. Okay, but there is El Shaddai and the covenant are both mentioned in that paragraph there. And so you can see that one verse there, or chapter, deals with Yahweh appearing to Isaac and reconfirming that covenant with him also. So with that, I say praises to Yahshua the Messiah. I'm glad that he gave me the opportunity to go through that chart. I've looked at that chart for some time, and just understood how important that chart really is. And I'm glad and thankful and grateful that he gave me the opportunity to go through it, and I hope somebody got something out of it. Praise Praise Yahweh.
Thank you, Dr. McNamara. Our next speaker for this afternoon session will be Dr. Andrea McCullough.
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me? Sorry. Good morning. Afternoon. Thank you. I appreciated the words of the previous speaker. Let's go back and dig in just a little bit more into that Exodus 3 and 1.
Exodus 3 and 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of Elohim, even to Horeb. And the angel, do you want the Holy Name version or do you want the King James version?
Let's start with Holy Name.
And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed.
Okay, so here's Moses again, right? He's in the wilderness. He's here, and he is with the flock. So he's out there, he's doing his job, he's leading the flock, and he comes upon this bush that's not being burned. So, okay, just keep going.
And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I.
Okay, so he's turning aside. So I think of this as he's turning aside his physical thoughts. He's turning aside the fact that he has, that he's tending the flock, that he needs to be out there doing his job, because he's going, how is this bush burning? How is this bush burning and not being consumed? So he's experiencing a vision of this bush being burned and an angel in there. Okay, go ahead.
And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohim. To a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people and the children of Israel out of Egypt. And Moses said unto Elohim, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with you, or with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee, that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve Elohim upon this mountain. And Moses said unto Elohim, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name?
Okay, so Elohim is speaking to him in this burning bush, and Moses is saying is back to them. Well, who am I? Who am I to go down to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let your people go? And he says, Surely I will be with you. Moses is asking, what's your name? Because they're going to ask you, what's your name? So back to Exodus 6 and 3.
Exodus 6 and 3. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of El Shaddai, but by my name Yahweh was I not known to them.
Okay, so Moses is asking Elohim here, what's your name? What name do I take to the people? Because this is when he's revealing his name to Moses. But before that, they don't know his name. They called him El Shaddai, or Almighty Provider. Okay, so let's go back to where we left off in Exodus 3.
And Moses said unto Elohim, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And Elohim said unto Moses, Aya, Asher, Aya. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I will be, have sent me unto you. And Elohim said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations.
Okay, so he gives him Aya, Asher, Aya. Okay, he doesn't say Yahweh just yet. He says Aya, Asher, Aya. So I'm going to need this board because dug in a little bit to this. Oh, probably should turn it around here. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter. You just have to clean it off. That's probably good enough. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I have been looking into this Aya, Asher, Aya, and I started thinking to myself, I needed to learn Hebrew. You know, I started to think, oh boy, I need to learn Hebrew. You know, this is something that I really want to be able to look at. And how can I do that in English, right? Okay, so what I've come to learn is, now this might be a little crude here, but I think it will get the point across. Okay, so first, now I'm going to be writing left to right because in English that's what we do, but in Hebrew they write right to left, right? Okay. So Aya, Asher, Aya looks similar to something about what I'm going to depict here very crudely. My ancient Hebrew is not awesome. If yours is, get on up here.
And help.
I'm taking up some space here, but this is okay. Okay, so if you imagine this saying Aya, Asher, Aya, okay, in ancient Hebrew. Now, I think it's important to note that this is ancient Hebrew. This is not modern Hebrew, right? Okay, so now if we look at Aya, Asher, Aya, and we look at the root word of Aya, because Aya is a verb meaning to be, to exist, okay? So if we look at just this portion, okay, of Aya, Asher, Aya, this right here is the verb, okay? So that would be likened unto this in English, okay? Now, the way that I actually looked this up too, to prove to myself what I'm about to go through here, in well, let me backtrack a second here. Okay, now this is something too. In English, we have 3 tenses, past, present, and future, right? Ancient Hebrew exists in 2 tenses. It exists in an imperfect tense and a perfect tense. And the way to kind of think about that is A perfect tense shows actions completed or describes actions completed. And an imperfect tense describes actions incompleted, okay? Ancient Hebrew is a very experience and action-oriented language. I describe it as there's not a lot of fillers in ancient Hebrew, the way that we have so many fillers, you know, like and especially. There you go. Okay. So, let me see here what else I've got in my notes. Okay, so ayah, this is the verb or the root word, okay, is in an imperfect tense, which means it is actions to be completed, okay? Let me... Okay. So if we look at ayah, asha, ayah over here, and we think of ayah as the root word of to be or to exist. Now let's get that in the King James Version. Let's get that verse.
Exodus 3, do you want 14?
14, yeah.
Okay. And Elohim, and God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you.
Okay. So in the Hebrew Bible, it says ayah, asher, ayah. I deleted or I removed that last character there, but it says the Hebrew Bible says this because me thinking I need to learn ancient Hebrew and all this stuff. No, I don't think it goes that far. But I do have, and I can give everybody the reference, but I found a website where you can actually have the Hebrew Bible and the King James Bible right next to each other. So if you know what you're looking for, you can find ayah, asher, ayah right there. It's in so many scriptures. As a matter of fact, in the name Yahweh, yep. Okay, so Exodus 3 and 12.
Holy name or King James? Holy name?
Holy name.
Exodus 3 and 12. And he said, certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee.
Okay, that's okay right there. So he says, certainly I will be with thee. Okay, so when you read that, when you look at that text in the Hebrew Bible, this is right here. I will be. This right here. Ayah is right there. So it's just a testament to say that I will be. So when you look at ayah, asher, ayah, and we heard the King James Version, I am that I am, ayah is an imperfect tense, which means that its action's incomplete, like I just said, right? So I am that I am, how could that make any sense? That sounds like action complete. That sounds like I am that I am, that's all that I am, Right, limitations, exactly. Now if you think, Yahweh is limitless. He is formless, he is limitless, he is eternity. Right? So if you can't put him in a box. You can't put him in a perfect tense. You can't. So if we think of ayah as an imperfect verb, and in that scripture we just read, that verse we just said, that he says, certainly I will be with thee, then ayah has to be I will be. It can't be anything else. It has to be I will be. Now what? Asher, okay, now Asher looks like this in Hebrew, or similar to that, in Hebrew, and Asher is a pronoun, okay, so it can mean what, who, how, because, it can mean all of those things, kind of, depending on the context, okay, of what is being said. And like I said, Hebrew is very action-oriented language, not a lot of fillers, nothing going on there that, that's unnecessary. and it's experience, right? Okay, so because if you think of back here where he says, well, what do I go down and tell them is your name? Well, they don't know his name. They've never experienced it, right? So they're not a people that, I guess I could think of it this way. They're not dreamers. They're not, everything is concrete for them. Everything is based on experience. Their language alone is based on experience and concreteness. Okay, so if we look at that way, and then let's get Exodus 3:15. See if I can do this.
Holy name?
Yes.
Exodus 3:15. And Elohim said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations.
Okay. So if we go back to our ancient Hebrew lesson here, Yahweh in ancient Hebrew is the Yod He Wad He, right? Right here, the Tetragrammaton. Now, if we look at, okay, I'll very crudely draw the Tetragrammaton now too. Okay. Okay, so this, okay, yeah. If we look at the Tetragrammaton here, the root verb, okay, of the Tetragrammaton is basically this, right? So we take off the yod, and that is to exist. So what we're looking at here is aya, meaning to be, the root verb meaning to be, and Yahweh, the root verb to exist, that's basically one and the same. He who exists, he will be, right? Okay, so then what you can do is look at that, and you have Ayer, Asher, Aya, I will be what I will to be, right? And Yahweh, he who exists, right? Or causes to exist. And even though they're not the same word, they don't come from exactly the same verb, but they are related. And it's just a way that we can look at it that both convey that Yahweh is the existing one. He was the existing one, he is the existing one, and he will be the existing one. There was something else that I also had. Okay, maybe I didn't have much more than that, but let's just go back to Exodus where we left off at the burning bush, just real quick, just to make sure that I'm. Go back to Exodus 3:14.
Exodus 3:14. And Elohim said unto Moses, Aya, Asher, Aya. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I will be, hath sent me unto you.
Okay. So I will be, hath sent me unto you. I think that probably covers what I had on my mind. I think. I mean, I just wanted to show you that Aya, Asher, Aya, and Yahweh are essentially the same. Even though when we are looking at ancient Hebrew and we're looking at the root words for those those translations, and that's the other thing too, is that I think a lot of times we have to consider translation and transliteration. So translation expresses, what I looked up, expresses the sense of words or text in another language, okay? Transliteration is to write or print a letter or word using the closest corresponding letter of a different alphabet or language. So transliteration doesn't give you any sense of the word. So it's not something to me that seems like it can be relied on, because transliteration has too much room in it for self-interpretation. Whereas a translation focuses less on transferring, I guess I could say, transferring character by character, so much as just the sense of the word and what the word means. And I think that's an important point to point out in all of this too. So with that, I say, praise Yahshua. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Would the second ayah also be imperfect?
Yes. Yep, both. Ayah, the verb ayah, imperfect. Yep, imperfect tense. So always incomplete action. Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. McCullough. Our next speaker for this afternoon session will be our secretary, Dr. Janice Welsh.
Well, good afternoon. And I really appreciate the first speaker going back through that chart in the Elohim book, because a lot of times, at least for me, when I was reading the Elohim book, I kind of skim over that part because it's in black and white. If it's not in Technicolor like the movies, I kind of have a tendency to just like but there's a lot of important information in that little chart there, because it shows a little bit more detail of what was happening down here in Egypt before Moses went out here to the burning bush. And also, I just want to mention about that Ayah, Asher, Ayah. Of course, I haven't even gone into to look that up. So sometimes Yahweh just has somebody point out things for you, because we sit up here, we take in a lot of information. We learn so much about our Creator that there's so much to learn. And that's why you little bitty babies are so important to us, okay? Don't ever forget it. You can learn a lot from whoever it is, whoever Yahweh puts before you, because everybody has their part, and he'll let you see something, just the minutest detail, or it could be expounding, or, it could be a great revelation to you. So we are all important in Yahweh's purpose, and everybody has a part to play. No matter how little you may think it is, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to me to see our little babies grow up. So this ayah, and then the Asher, because I've seen, I will be what I will to be, I will be what I want to be, or here it's I am that I am, or there's I will be what I shall be, or however, they've got a whole list of things of this Asher. But the main thing is, we know that Yahweh is a brother, because he be, all right? He be being. That's what we say in the neighborhood, we be. Little did I know that they were talking about the Creator, and he put, oh yeah, man, I just be being. Yeah, you just, Yahweh, he will be whatever he wills to be. And the other thing too, which I'm glad you brought that up, because I had been meaning to look into the verb I am, because I am is, it's I am, I was, I will be, but those are the tenses of the verb to be. So how come it's not I be, I was being, I will be being? It's not like that. It's I am, I was, I will be. And that is all the conjugation. Is that how you say it? The conjugation, you know, that's the King's English, of the verb to be. But in the neighborhood where I come from, we just be. All right? We don't go through all that. We just be being. And we're all right with that. Whatever. So anyway, Yahweh is amazing. Right here, let's go back into the scriptures and try to pull something out of there. Let's go to 3 and 13. Let's just start there, and then maybe I can.
Exodus 3 and 13. King James or Holy Name?
Holy Name, please.
And Moses said unto Elohim, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel.
Now this is Moses, and he says, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, read.
And shall say unto them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me unto you.
The Elohim of your fathers has sent me unto you, because he's already figured out he's from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Or Yahweh told him, I am the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. And I don't even know how Moses knew that, because he was born here in Egypt, but he knew evidently that his great-great-grandfathers and stuff was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Go ahead and read.
And they shall say to me, What is his name?
Now, see, that is just so important. And, when you first meet somebody, what do you say to them?
What's your name?
You say, hey, I be being. No, you'd be like, what's your name? And that is a very critical identifying piece of information, a name. What is your name? Now, I work in a place where they got all kinds of different kinds of names. Shalika, Renika, Escolella. The names are just like made off the top of their parents' head, I guess. But he asked him, what is your name? Now, Moses, coming from this land of Egypt, that was an important thing for him to ask. Why? Because every god had a name. They had a god for the Nile, I think Isis. They even had a god named Happy. And Yahweh made Happy sad when he got down there. All kinds of names. Even the Pharaoh's name. He thought he was a god. Ramses or Ramos. How do you say it? Ramoses, right, which means to draw out from the sun. And Moses, his name meant to draw out of the water. So there were all kinds of gods down there. They had all kinds of names, superstitions. But Moses asked, what is your name? and then he tells them, Aya, Asher, Aya, I be. Like, you what? And then he says, tell them, I will be hath sent me unto you. And then he tells Moses his name. Go ahead and read.
And Elohim said unto Moses,
Mm-hmm.
Aya, Asher, Aya.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel,
Mm-hmm.
I will be, hath sent me unto you.
I will be has sent me unto you. Read.
And Elohim said moreover unto Moses,
Mm-hmm.
Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel,
Now this is some more that I want you to say unto the children of Israel. Read.
Yahweh.
Yahweh. Now in the King James Version it says the Lord. But you know how precious this information is.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? There would be no way for any of us to figure this out. So when Dr. Kinley had that vision, he was like a little light that shined on the world. And some people saw the light and turned their back on it, walked away and said, you know what, I just rather be in darkness. I don't know about you, but I ain't never liked the dark. When I was a little kid, I was scared of the dark. I would ask Mom, please leave the light on. And even Motel 6 say, I'll leave the light on for you, child. Just come on. Don't nobody want to be in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about the dark, even as a child, that you just are afraid of it. I don't know why I was so afraid of the dark. But he brought the light. That's why you gotta understand, and I'm talking to me, how precious this is and where this information came from. This information came from the Creator himself, because nobody else knew it. The Bible has been in existence for since I was a little kid. And we got all kinds of religions and this and that, and everybody's got their own interpretation or imagination. But it took this man with a 6th grade education to come down here and Yahweh give him a vision and tell us that the name of our Creator is Yahweh. And he didn't just say, oh, the name is Yahweh, I want you to believe it. No, he said, look, I exist, and I cause to exist. So once you get the name of Yahweh, you breathe it. But you have to continue to breathe it. You have to continue to call on that name of Yahweh, or you just ain't gonna be being no more, child. You just ain't gonna be, at least not here. You going on to glory or wherever you going. But you need that name of Yahweh to continue your existence from a physical point, even on this earth plane. So he exists, and like you said, he causes to exist. Now this imperfect and perfect tense, I've never heard that before. Perfect tense, where you would think the perfect would be the one, but the imperfect is incomplete. So that is really something to chew on and to look at. And I appreciate all of the little nuggets of things that we get, because Yahweh doesn't just put stuff out for you to just ignore it. You know, kind of look at it. And why? Because so you could understand more about him. Okay, now continue reading where you were.
And Elohim said, moreover, unto Moses, Thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations.
Now, did you hear that? This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. So, to be, he is going to be forever. There ain't no escaping Yahweh. Now, even if you happen to go down here to what David calls Birmingham, you're still not going to escape Yahweh, because he's going to be there forever. And he's given us this opportunity to know him so that we can be with him in righteousness and not in degradation. And that's going to go on forever. So when you look at this chart, you see Moses. First thing he does is he gets the name of Yahweh at this burning bush. Now, it's interesting how Moses is brought up. First of all, he escapes a death decree. Everybody, all the little male babies died. Y'all two might not have made it if you was down there. I'm just saying. But you here, you all right, okay? You're safe. But all the male babies were to be killed. And it's interesting how Pharaoh did it. He didn't just go take the babies and snatch them and choke them. He did it in a particular way. He had his soldiers come and get those babies and throw them into the water and drown them. So, how are people going to go along with that? They worship so many gods down there. He probably had to do it in that particular way to say, oh, he's going to sacrifice them to some god. Now, Pharaoh's daughter, she just happened to be strolling along the river Nile, and she sees an ark. And that ark is not really in the water, it's in the flags by the river's brink. So if you see the movies and Moses is tossing, turning, floating down the river, that ain't what happened. The baby would not have made it. But he was in the flags, and flags are stones. They can be stones, flat stones by the water, and they can be weeds. So it's like he's sitting in those, on those flat stones and kind of hidden by those weeds. So she must have, let's get it. What happened? These people are very superstitious. Well, I shouldn't say superstitious. They believe in many gods. The things that they do are not just usually for any old reason. Throwing the babies into the water couldn't have been just any old kind of way to dispose of children. I don't know, what did Herod do with the babies 2 years old? He killed them. It doesn't say how.
Right.
But back here they had gods. They had all kinds of things that they worshipped. So he had his men throw those babies in the water. Okay, go ahead and grab Pharaoh's daughter.
Exodus 2:5. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river.
Okay.
And her maidens walked along by the river's side.
Read.
And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it.
Now, that's funny. I was thinking in my mind that she heard Moses cry, but that wasn't it.
She saw it.
She saw the ark down there. And you know what? And Moses, he built an ark.
No.
And that saved the 8 souls. Did I say, who did I say?
Moses.
Moses. I'm just mixing everybody up. Noah had that ark built, and that saved the remnant of the world at that time. So here you have an ark by the river's brink. So go ahead and read.
And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she opened it,
she
saw the child, and behold, the boy wept.
And the boy wept. Now, I was thinking in my mind, she heard the baby cry and then went. But no, it says she went to bathe herself, and she had her entourage with her, her maidens, because she's not trying to be, I don't know what she was trying to do. But you know what? As a princess of Egypt, she did not have to go down to the river to bathe.
Right.
That girl could have had her little posse go down there and get her a couple quarts of water, and she could have did it in the privacy of her own home. So why is she down at the water to bathe herself? So she sees, and there's so much to the story and how Yahweh caused things to happen. And so she went down there to bathe herself in the water. Why?
Fertility.
Fertility. Why fertility? The river Nile, what does it represent? It represents fertility. In fact, I think it's named after the god, the fertility god.
Yeah.
Because every spring, the water would wash up on the shore and fertilize the land so they could grow their crops. So naturally, thinking of, the God of fertility that causes our plants to grow so that we can eat, so that we can live, could be the God that would cause me to be fertile if I just go down there and bathe in that water. So she sees that ark, and then what happens?
And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the boy wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children."
Now she knew that it was one of the Hebrews' children.
Right.
But because it was in an ark, and remember, Moses' mother is very familiar with the customs of the Egyptians. And of course she's trying to save her baby. So what does she do? She puts the baby in an ark. Why? It'll click to Pharaoh's daughter if she sees the baby that the gods brought it. And there's even, I heard something about when they talk about Easter, how they thought that the something came out of the water in an ark, an egg that came out of Astarte, that's it. So there was already the superstition going on at that particular time that life came from this water, and there was an egg, and oh my gosh, the stories go on and on and on. So she sees this, and she knows it's one of the Hebrew children, but because it was presented in a way that she could believe that it was from the gods.
Right.
Of course, that would supersede her father's commandment. Well, the gods brought me this baby. And plus, the other babies were being killed or sacrificed in the water. So here, and Yahweh just knows how man's mind operates, and he knows to work everything around it so that you'll do exactly what he needs you to do, and you don't even know what's happening. See, now that's the same thing that happened down here with Yahshua the Messiah. He knew what to do. Yahshua had to go on that cross, and he had to die, and that blood had to come out of his body. So Yahweh set it up so that, the people are going to get so mad at him that they're going to put him up on a cross and beat him and cause his blood to come out of his body. Why? To save us? Now, I ain't doing that much for y'all. I like you a little bit, but I'm not going to that extreme. But he has everything set up. And you see here also that Moses had this vision at this burning bush. It almost reminds me of the big lighter, because he had a burning bush, but he's going to take him up here into this fiery cloud, and he's going to show him 2 visions on Mount Sinai. So that's just a start. So Moses gets the vision here. He comes down, gets the children of Egypt out, and brings them back up to this mount so they can worship Yahweh here. And then Yahweh brings him on the top of the mount and gives him a stupendous, divine vision and revelation. So we are really blessed to have access to this information. And it comes directly from our Creator. All praises go to Yahshua the Messiah. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Dr. Welsh. That brings a close to our session for this today. Are there any comments or questions? Our classes are held every Wednesday and Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. and on Sundays from 11 to 1 p.m. Let us all stand for the doxology. Now unto him who is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy, to the only wise Elohim, our Savior, through Yahshua the Messiah, our Sovereign, belong glory, majesty, dominion, and power, both before all time, now and ever. Let us all say, Hallelujah.
To learn his name, you're gonna be to blame if you don't search for him while he is near, while he can be found. If you really feared, you would search for him. He's everywhere. Yahweh can be found while there's still time to care. Oh, there's still time to search for him, search for him. He's everywhere, everywhere. Yahweh can be found if you really fit. You